Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be installing a diesel heater, a Chinese diesel heater, to my 2015 Freightliner Sprinter van. I bought it on Amazon. I think it was like 150 bucks. I've read a bunch of reviews. It seems to have quite a few good reviews. I didn't want to shell out all that cash for the S-bar heater. It's pretty expensive, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to give it a go. It's so cheap I might as well try it. So here it is. It's a 5 kilowatt diesel heater. I'm going to link down the, I'll link it down in the description below so you know which one it is. This is everything it comes with, minus a few extra things I bought. I did have to buy these. These are for the auxiliary fuel line. So my Sprinter van, 2015 Sprinter, comes with an auxiliary fuel line under the driver's side. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. But yeah, these Dorman 800 TAC 188. You'll need these to connect to that auxiliary fuel line. It also came with an external fuel tank, but since I'm using the auxiliary fuel line on the van, I won't be using the external fuel tank, so I'll just be using these. I also bought this just some gasket sealer here, like high temp silicone, just to seal around the holes once I make the holes through the van. This comes with some exhaust pipe. I believe this is the intake pipe. Comes with a little control, a remote. Here's the fuel pump, and then it comes with just a muffler here. And it also comes with these extra pieces, just a bunch of Jubilee clips and cable ties. Also comes with a fuel filter as well. And then here's the fuel line. I've heard some mixed reviews about the fuel line, like it being too squishy, but this one seems pretty rigid, so I don't think we're going to have any issues with it being too flimsy. So I'm going to use this one. Hopefully it'll do the job. I believe this goes on the edge, on the end of the air intake, just to just stop any debris going up inside the line. Here's the electrical wiring. Hopefully that's not too difficult. And then this goes inside the van to it's kind of like the where the heat comes out of for inside the van. And then I don't know if I'll be using this. I don't think I'll need that. But first job will be to take the seat off. So I'm going to be installing it under my passenger seat. There's some extra room under here, so I'm going to be taking this seat out. I've already taken it off before to install the swivel seats. It's pretty simple. It's just 4 bolts. Let's take this off first. So I don't know if you can see. Yeah, so I already have a swivel seat installed on this seat. So I just swiveled it partially so I could get to these 4 bolts. I forget what T number these are, but yeah, there's 4 of these. 2 in the front and then 2 in the back. I don't know if you can see them, but there they are. So yeah, we'll just take these out, and then I'm just going to take this whole seat mechanism off, and then I'll be able to access underneath here for these bolts. So I'm just going to use it's an 11 millimeter just regular socket, and I'm just going to use that to take off these bolts real quick. That's 3. Okay, so here's how it looks after you take the seat off. Sorry, this is kind of grimy looking, but yeah, so this is where it's gonna go. I watched a couple of other videos, and yeah, you kind of have to mount it at an angle so it'll fit. I did run my 12-volt wire before I put my floor in, so that way, because I knew I was going to put a heater in, so I ran it beforehand. That way you won't see any of the wiring. So yeah, this is for the wiring. And yeah, so let's get to it. Okay, so I'm just looking at the heater here. I just read the manual, and this pipe right here on this side with nothing next to it, just these bolts, this is the exhaust, and this is the intake. So if you're confused, this side is the exhaust. So on this particular heater, I'm pretty sure most of them come with this rubber gasket. I'm just going to take this off, and I'm going to use it as my template for the holes so I don't cut the wrong sizes or the wrong place. Just take this off real quick. Oops. Back on. And then, yeah, and then I'll use this as my template. It did come with this metal piece as well, so I'll probably use that. I'm going to use this to cut it out. So yeah, I looked under the van and it looks like I'm pretty safe to drill in this area, right around this curve. I think that should be good. I'm going to triple check though before I cut these holes. Okay, so I'm just looking underneath where to drill, and that crease on top under the seat, there's another crease here on the bottom, so it kind of gives you a good idea of where to cut. I saw this on another video. So yeah, so as long as I'm somewhere in this area, I should be good, and that way I have plenty of room to work with. Okay, so this was just a like a commercial van before. That's why it's so grimy under here. So I'm just going to clean this up real quick, and then I'm going to grab a Sharpie and I can outline these holes where I'm going to cut, and then I can make a pilot hole, make sure it's in the right spot. Alright, so it's cleaned it up a bit, and now I have this gasket. It's kind of just running along this edge here. So I'm just going to mark these holes, and then I'm going to drill pilot holes into these just to make sure it's in the right spot, and then I'll go ahead and make the big cuts. So I'm just using this very small drill bit. Sorry, I don't know which size it is, but it's very small, and I'm just going to make a pilot hole on this side and one on this side, just to make sure I clear the undercarriage underneath so I don't hit any support beams or anything like that. There's the pilot holes. I got two right here. I'm just going to go underneath and make sure they're in a good spot. So there we go. That should be good. So now we should have plenty of room for the other holes. So now I'll go ahead and drill these to the right size, and then drill the other two as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill these 4 holes, and I'll go ahead and do these 2. So now I've got those cut, those 4 holes for the bolts. I'm going to be cutting these 2 holes for the intake and exhaust, and I'm using this 1 1/8 circular hole saw bit. It's going to be a little bit bigger than the what I need, but that'll be okay. I just want to make sure it's big enough, because if it's too small, it makes it much more difficult to make it bigger. So I'd rather be safe than sorry again. So I'm going to drill this for those 2 holes. Okay, so moment of truth. I got my 2 holes cut and these 4 bolt holes. After I'm done making sure this fits, I'm going to paint this up with some Rust-Oleum paint just to stop it from rusting. Okay, before I try this, I just need to cut this hole right here for the fuel line. I don't know if you can see it, this one. So I finally got it in. To be honest, I made it a little bit too snug, but it's in. So I'll show you underneath. There it is. So yeah, it fits. This fuel line here, it does move a little bit, so if you do have trouble getting it in, you can just move it over a bit. So now I'm going to take it back off, paint the edges with some Rust-Oleum, and then I'll apply the silicone adhesive. So I'm just going to paint these holes with a little bit of trim clad. I'm going to get all those open edges, bad metal edges. Don't want any rust. Yeah, but if I was to do these holes again, I'd probably just move it up maybe 1/4 inch this way, at least for this type of heater anyway, because it was pretty tight. Alright, that should be good, and I'll just let this dry for a few minutes. And then we should be able to apply the silicone after I put the heater on. Okay, so I bought this high heat silicone. It's JB Weld Silicone. I can link it down in the description below. So I'm just gonna apply this all around these holes, and I'll put some on the outside as well after I put in the heater. And then just to make sure it all seals up nicely. I'm just gonna wait a few more minutes for this to dry because it's still kind of wet. And then I'll apply this. Okay, now it's pretty well dry. So I'm just gonna apply some of the silicone around all these holes. Okay. Okay, and now I'm gonna put the heater in, and then I'll silicone the other side. All right, it's in. Like I said, it's a little bit snug, but it fits. So now I'm just gonna put some of this on the undercarriage. So I'm just gonna apply this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the only hardware this thing came with to fasten this down was these 4 hex nuts. So this is what I'm going to use to fasten it from under the van. So let's go do that. So for these nuts, I'm using a 10mm socket and then this little extension, and I'm just going to fasten these up underneath. Yeah, so highly recommend putting the cover on the fuel line before you push it through the holes, just so you don't get any metal shards or silicone inside. So I'm just looking at the fuel line here that it came with and my auxiliary fuel line adapter, and it looks like it's much bigger than the hose that I'm using, so I'm just gonna have to run to the auto parts store real quick and get some kind of adapter for this so I can hook these two together. Alright, so I'm back at it again with this diesel heater. I did have to take a couple of days off from doing this video to order a new piece. So we'll leave off where we left off last time. I have this is bolted down. I haven't done any electrical work yet, but I did have to order a part. So here's the pump, the fuel pump, and then I had this thing. This is for the auxiliary fuel line for the Sprinter van. I had to pick up some 3/8 diameter fuel line because this is actually for 5/16, but it should fit pretty snug in here. And then I use one of these, either I bought some of these clamps as well, but I'll use one of these to clamp this on. And then the other piece that was really hard to find, I went to multiple local stores here and I couldn't find it. This is part number, where is it? I'll link it down in the description. There's a specific part number for this. Basically it's just a universal connector, and so I'm going to use this to connect this fuel line like so, and this fuel line on this side. And the reason I got 3/8 is because I think the thickest end of this is 3/8, and so I wanted this to be nice and snug on this. So that'll go onto this side, and then this fuel line will go onto this side. And then this kit does come with some little clamps, so I'm going to use those to secure this onto it. But without this, I wouldn't have been able to do it because I just wouldn't have been able to connect. So anyway, I'm going to go into the van. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is set all this up. Okay, so here's my progress so far. Basically have my Dolman 5/16 800 TAC 188 connector, auxiliary fuel connector. I have that, and then I have a piece of this 3/8 diameter fuel line. This is actually 5/16, but with this clamp it holds nice and secure. And I'm just using these fuel injection clamps, and then I'm using this universal connector. I got it on Amazon. and I have this clamped here. I just used a couple of inches of this fuel line, and then this is going to connect here, and then I'm going to use one of these. I'm hoping this will be strong enough. This is what my kit came with. I'm going to use one of these to hold it on. Hopefully that'll be strong enough. So my kit did come with a fuel filter as well. So yeah, I'll be installing this as well. But if these clamps are strong enough to hold the fuel filter on, it should be strong enough to hold that on. So yeah, so I did this now. I'm gonna go put this into the van and go from there. Okay, so here's the driver's side. Now if you go directly underneath the driver's side, basically where your fuel is, you go directly underneath. Here's the diesel tank, and then right next to it, here's the auxiliary fuel line. So I don't know if you can see, there's the passenger side, see the seat over there, and here is the fuel line. So what we're going to do is connect this. We're going to take this cap off, and then we're going to connect this to this. So there's a little button on the top, a little tab. If you just push on it, I don't know why it's not focusing. There it is. You can see the little tab right here. So if you just push in it, and it comes right off. And then this thing, it should just clamp right on. It should click into place. There it is. See, clamped. Okay, so now what I need to do is secure the fuel pump in a good solid location, and it has to be at a 15 to 35 degree angle is what I read, I think, on the instruction manual. Okay, so here's my instruction manual. It's not the greatest, but if you look at the picture, it should be between 15 and 35 degrees, and then you can kind of see the electrical connector here on this side. So that side needs to be facing upwards at the 35 degree mark. So when I install this, I'm going to make sure that electrical connector is facing up at the 30-35 degree angle. And this kit did come with some self-tapping screws, so I'm going to go ahead and use one of these to mount the fuel pump in place. I might have to pre-drill it, I might not, I'm going to see. Okay, so here's our progress so far. So we have this connected, and then I installed the fuel pump at a roughly 30 degree angle with the electronics inlet side on pointing up, and so it's going to run nice and level. It goes up here, and I ended up mounting it. So here's the front wheel. I ended up mounting it right here on the side piece. I was gonna try to do it over here, but it's such a hard angle with the drill to try to get it in, and yeah, this is nice and solid, and that way it just kind of flows out, and then I can just run it straight across. All right, so there it is, and a bit of fuel line it came with, and fuel pump, and now I just need to run this end all the way across to the passenger side. Okay, so there's the fuel pump. I don't know if you can see it. There we go, there it is. And I ran it up. I don't know what's going on with this camera. There it is. I ran it up above all those pipes, above the drive shaft. I'm gonna make sure this is all secure before I'm done. And then above the heat shield. And now I came back down. And now here's my heater. Okay, so there's my fuel line coming from the heater. My heater came with a fuel filter, so I put the filter right there. Okay, so I just mounted the intake pipe. Came with these little Jubilee clips. or pipe clamps, whatever you want to call them. So I just tighten that on there. And the intake pipe for my diesel heater, according to the instructions, goes on the outlet next to the fuel line. And so the exhaust will go onto this one. Exhaust, hopefully underneath, facing me underneath the outside of the vehicle. That way we don't have any fumes coming back into the intake. Alright, so I'm just reading through the instructions here. I have my exhaust pipe connected, and it also came with this little muffler as well. There's not really any ideal place to put this. The best place I can think of is just to screw it right here. I don't really like how low it is to the ground, but I don't want to cut this pipe. And then the intake valve, or intake pipe, it says in the instruction manual not to face it towards the driving direction. I think just to make sure there's no debris going inside. So I'm just going to mount it, something like that. Okay, so there's a muffler, connected exhaust pipe, inlet pipe, and the fuel line. It's all good to go. So now I'm just gonna wire up the electrical. Before I clamp any of this down, I just want to make sure everything works. So yeah, time to run some of the electrical wiring. Okay, so this wire right here, I believe this one goes to the fuel pump coming from the heater. So there's a little channel under here that goes to the driver's seat. I'm gonna run this underneath the channel, and then I think there is I believe there is a little grommet that I can push this through. Worst case, I have to cut these, push it through the grommet, and then you know, put them back together. But I'm gonna run this through here and then try to pull it through. What I've decided to do is I'm running my wire for the fuel pump underneath this gray rubber mat. There is a channel that goes underneath, but it's just filled up with wire, and it's going to be really hard to get it through. So I'm lifting up this gray mat. It's pretty well protected wire, so I'm just going to run it under the gray mat, underneath, through to the driver's side. In hindsight, what I probably could have done was just put the fuel pump on this side underneath the seat. I'm not sure if that's the correct way to do it, but put it on this side, and then I could have just run the wire straight down. But I'm thinking it's supposed to be close to the diesel tank so it can pump the fuel through a lot more efficiently, but I'm not too sure. But anyway, already did it, so I'm just going to run it through here. Okay, so I'm on the driver's side. I run it underneath this rubber mat, but I'm trying to get it through this little hole down there. I don't know if you can see it. That one? Oh, not that one. That one. It's down here. That's where another wire goes through for the handbrake. So I'm just gonna, this thing's too big to get through, so I'm just gonna cut it here, and then I can reconnect it on the other side. It's color coded, so it'll be easy to reconnect. Okay, so there is a rubber grommet on the driver's side. I don't know if you can see it from here, but I just pushed out the rubber piece that goes in there. It's right here. So there's a little rubber grommet that goes in this. You can just push from underneath and it pops it right out. I can run my wire that I just cut, and I can run it through here, because that wouldn't have fit through for that big plug on the end of it. So I'm just going to run it through here. Instead of just have that huge hole, I might just drill a hole through this and then run the wire through the hole so it's nice and sealed up, because it's a nice rubber. It's like a nice rubber grommet that seals it up nice. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but I ended up just putting a hole through that little rubber grommet, and then I fed the wire through it. Okay, so from underneath, there's a little wire coming through the grommet, and then here's my fuel pump, so works out quite nice. I'm just going to pull this down a bit, and then I just need to splice these wires, and then put them back together with the clip. Alright, there it is, all put back together. What I'm going to do though now is just get some electrical tape, and I'm going to just tape this all up so it's all nice and sealed up, just so there's no moisture getting in those wires. This is my 12 volt wire that I ran before I did the flooring in the van, and then here's my red and black. So here's the red, and the black. And then I just connected these two together. And then I'm just gonna connect them. So I just had to run to Home Depot real quick. And I just bought myself a 3 1/4 inch hole saw for the it's for the heat to come out of, for the heat vent, whatever you call it. I do have a 3 1/2 inch hole saw, but it was just too big and it would have cut over these holes to tighten it in. So I was gonna go with a 3 inch, but I don't think it would have been big enough, and I didn't want to have to file it down to get it to fit. So I'm just gonna use a 3 1/4 inch. So I'm just gonna line this up and cut away. So there's the hole cut. So I'm just gonna file it down with this file. And to be honest, I probably could have gone with a 3 inch hole saw. So if you're doing it, probably go with a 3 inch, because I have quite a bit of wiggle room. So I'm gonna file it down, and then I'm just gonna paint it up with some trim clad. All right, so this is probably gonna be the hardest part. I gotta trim this up and make sure it fits between the heater and the vent. So once I put this in, I screw that in. I don't have much room. I'm gonna have to make a real tight 90 or 45-degree angle on this. So I cut my piece of pipe, and it fits nicely. I tested it, and I just painted the metal there with some trim clad. So I'm just waiting on that to dry. But yeah, it should all work out perfectly. And yeah, everything's wired up. I'm thinking I still have to connect the battery to it, but I'm thinking I might add a switch on this just so I can turn off the power to it, just as like a kind of a safety feature. Okay, so I just wired up this little on-off switch just so I can turn the power off to it whenever I need. And now I'm just gonna screw this in. The paint's dry now, so I'm just gonna screw this bracket in to hold this vent, and I'm just using some soft tapping screws. Okay, there it is. It's all connected. Vent's connected. I got my switch. Now I just need to connect the remote or the control for it, and we should be in business. Let's give it a try. Okay, so everything's wired up. It's all connected. It looks a bit of a mess because I mounted the remote on the outside, and I cut the wire so I could fit it through this hole so it would finish it off. And then I have an on-off switch just to cut the power, just in case. And so everything's wired, it's all connected. Fingers crossed everything works. The sun is right in my eyes. Okay, here we go. Power. Okay, let's try again. There we go. Now we have power. Oh, I heard something. Come on. Don't do this to me. Oh, it's on. It's loading. It's doing something. It's got a display on there. Okay, so I finally got it working. I guess it was rubbing on this fan and it was stopping it from spinning. So I had it too close to this. But it's running, finally. I'm just gonna get checked, see if the fuel's coming out. Sounds like it's trying to pump. Oh yeah, this fuel. Okay, so I figured it out. So what you need to do is, well, first I had an error code on this thing. Why is it not focusing? Anyway, I had an E06 error code, and so what that means is this fan gets stuck, and so I had it too close to this edge and it was getting stuck and I couldn't spin, so I had to take off the this grill piece, and then now it should move freely. And I should be able to just put the cover back on, but just keep in mind, don't put it too close to your the metal. And then the other thing, I was trying to get it to purge the pump the fuel through the lines, what you have to do is hit OK and the down arrow at the same time, and then it should say HOF or HON. And so and if it says OF, you just hit the up arrow to change it to on, hit OK, and then it starts pumping the fuel through. And so now it's been going for a while, and I think it pumped all the fuel through, and now it should be good to go. Let's give it. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but the fuel is in the lines all the way up. It went all the way through, so you just have to turn that H on for it to pump the fuel through. And now I should be able to turn this thing on. So let's see. I'm not sure, I haven't figured all these gadgets out yet, but there we go. There it goes. Let's see if it comes on. Oh, there we go. I hear it, it's going. Come on. It's coming out hot. It's just taking a while. Nice and warm. I'm just gonna let it run for a bit. Looks like it's working. This kind of took some fiddling around. Had to purge it, get the fuel line full of fuel, and it just takes a little bit for it to get going. So it looks like it's working pretty good.
Quite loud.
Well, yeah. I took the cover off.
Oh.
Hopefully, hopefully it's good. But that's it. Now I'll just put everything back. Okay, so to turn this off, you just press and hold the power button for 2 seconds, and then it'll display off, and then I think it just has to go through a shutdown cycle, and then once it does that, it'll switch off. Okay, so if you do buy a Chinese diesel heater, keep in mind it's not going to be perfect. Instruction manual is not the greatest, but it works. I'm just gonna have to read through this manual tonight and kind of figure out how to use it. But yeah, I mean, it puts out a lot of heat, and yeah, it works pretty good, so pretty happy with it. I'm gonna play around with it for the next couple of days and see how it works. But thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.